Just talking about this game, having to relive it is unpleasant. And in this video, I'm going to share a few harsh truths that I took away from last night's game. This was yet another example of the Baltimore Ravens shooting themselves in the foot, being their own worst enemy. Let's start with Lamar Jackson. We all know the narrative circling around him is that he is your excellent regular season quarterback. He's going to lead your team to a successful season, get you to be the number one seed in the AFC North, or, win you at least 14 games in the regular season, but make it to the postseason. And he's going to be a complete disappointment. And that's the narrative that I really hate for Lamar. And last night was an opportunity for him to put that narrative to bed, or at least begin the trek on the journey to putting that narrative to sleep. And Lamar struggled early on. Namely in the end of the first quarter, going, especially in that second quarter, because the first drive was electric, right? That first offensive drive marched down the field, easily scored a touchdown. I was relaxed. I thought, wow, we can sit back and have a really good game because this offense came out firing, right? But then we saw Lamar Jackson with 2 turnovers. One was a fumble after a bad snap by Tyler Linderbaum. Lamar Jackson was able to recover the bad snap, but a moment later, he fumbles the ball. And the second was an interception. And the interception resulted in a touchdown by the Buffalo Bills. During the regular season, Lamar Jackson had 10 fumbles, and he had 11 fumbles in 2023. That's not going to work in the postseason. It's not going to get it done. So by contrast, looking at Josh Allen, he had 5 fumbles this past season. And in terms of interceptions, Josh Allen during the regular season decreased his interceptions from 2023, where he had 18, to 2024, where he had 6. That's the type of improvement that you're going to need in order to be successful in the postseason. And while we've seen growth in Lamar in terms of his passing, accuracy, ability to read a defense, and just a complete maturation of him as a quarterback, we're still seeing a lot of fumbles. Those fumbles are what makes the difference. The interception was just, to me, that was all on Lamar. And because of that, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot before halftime. So now we find ourselves trying to really struggle to climb back in, right? And to give ourselves a chance at winning this game. Because in the playoffs, it's win or go home. You must protect the ball at all costs. Lamar spoke on it, and he vented and he voiced his frustration when he was asked about the fumble, when he was asked about the turnover, the interception. He made it very clear that he's tired of it. He's tired of it. So he recognizes that this is a problem. And I know that football, obviously, it is a team sport, but there is always a heavy emphasis that's placed on a quarterback. Always. So with that in mind, I think of, Lamar, he did something incredible for this team. After he made those mistakes, that second half, he really tried to put the team on his back, carry us to victory, which how many other quarterbacks in this league can we say safely and realistically would be able to do it? So he tried to, make up for his mistake. He tried to right the wrong, and it just proved to be a little bit too much. And despite Lamar's heroics, I can go into the fact that the Ravens had 416 total yards in comparison to the Bills' 273 yards of offense. I could go into how we were able to march down the field and get that 90-yard touchdown drive to Isaiah Likely, which, was led primarily in that drive by players that I would not have even thought of: Anthony Miller, Steven Sims, and even Nelson Aguilar at wide receiver. But all of that doesn't matter at the end of the day because we weren't able to get the job done. And so it kind of feels like if we don't have Lamar playing A+ level every game, where are his playmakers that can step up and assist him? Other quarterbacks have that. That's not to say that Lamar should not be held accountable for his mistakes, because he absolutely should. And he took accountability in the press conference last night. And I hope and I pray and I expect that he will work on trying to secure the ball a little bit more going into the next season. But Lamar can't do it alone. As I said, this is a team sport. And so it also is largely dependent upon how well the O-line performs. The interior O-line has been an issue for a large majority of this season, and it was on display last night against the Bills. So seeing how the offensive line was not really able, especially in that first half, to create lanes for the running backs. And we'll talk about Derrick Henry in just a moment, but they were, the offensive line was just not able to open up holes for the running backs to run. We kept seeing Derrick Henry getting stuffed time after time yesterday, namely in that first half. That is something that needs to be addressed again this offseason. That offensive line, what are we going to do? And speaking of running backs who absolutely need the offensive line, Derrick Henry, he had 16 carries for 84 yards the entire game. 16 carries. You could not convince me prior to yesterday that Derrick Henry would have anything less than 25 carries. Well, shout out to the Bills, because they were prepared to stop the run. And early on, we saw that they were able to do it. Why? Because, again, our offensive line struggled to create those holes for Derrick Henry. But one thing that stuck out to me in terms of Derrick was we pitched the ball to Derrick Henry twice on 2 occasions, and he dropped both passes. Stop doing that. Make in-game adjustments. If you see after the first time it didn't work, let's go to another reliable source. I think another option would have been pitching the ball to Isaiah Likely, pitching the ball to Justice Hill. And where was Keaton Mitchell in terms of the run game? Those are things that I would have liked to have seen more, because we saw Derrick Henry after that first drop. I would have said, okay, time to switch it up. But that's not what happened. And that brings me now to Mark Andrews. It was a tough night for him, but not only a tough night, it's been extremely difficult for him in the playoffs, because as of last night, he still remains scoreless in the postseason. And he had an opportunity to kind of go in, put some points on the board, and kind of secure us going into overtime, tying the game up with the clock winding down in the fourth quarter. Lamar Jackson throws it to Mark Andrews in the end zone, or right at the goal line, and he drops it. That was unacceptable. And it's tough to talk about Mark Andrews in this way, because I have been a Mark Andrews supporter. I still believe in Mark Andrews. I just have questions now, because we've seen year after year, playoff after playoff. I think 5 playoffs now that he's been in, and he's just not been a contribution at all in terms of putting points on the board. You can't just be a really good player in the regular season and then come to the postseason and be a non-factor. We talked about it earlier with Lamar Jackson. At least with Lamar, he came back in the second half and really tried to say, okay, even though we're down, I'm still believing in this team, and we got to get our heads in the game, and we got to go out there and put some points on the board. He tried, and he did. But when it came to Mark Andrews, that was an absolute disaster. And the play calling here should have been better. I'm thinking we are terrible, and we have been terrible at 2-point conversion this season. Why did we not use Derrick Henry at the goal line? Why did we, for that 2-point conversion, why did we not do a fake to Derrick Henry and have Lamar run into the end zone? Something else needed to happen, because we already saw Mark Andrews had a drop earlier. And we know just from history that Mark Andrews hasn't been that guy in the postseason. So that was really disappointing to see that we did not come out with at least being able to tie the game up when we had an opportunity. And after the game, Mark Andrews declined to speak to the reporters, which I understand some might take the position, well, you should not have put Mark Andrews in that situation to begin with. If Lamar had done his job early on, or if the team had done better as a whole, as a unit, we would not have needed to be trying to get a 2-point conversion, game on the line, and it's unfair. I know that that's what some people might say. And I agree to a certain extent. It would have been nice to put our foot on the gas early, score points early, often, and not have those mistakes, which really shifted the tide of this game. But you are in the NFL. You are the best of the best at your position. And when your number is called, you need to be able, you need to be ready to step up in the biggest of moments. It's similar to what we say when a game is on the line and you have to put your kicker in there to make a game winning or game tying field goal. Well, we shouldn't put the kicker in that situation. That may be. But sometimes things happen in these games, and you're left with needing a 2-point conversion just to give you some life or some hope, or you're left with needing a field goal. And tonight or last night, Mark Andrews didn't get it done. That's also where I think play calling came into question. Todd Monken called a pretty good game. However, there were instances where during the live stream yesterday, I thought to myself, and I even vocalized it during the show, I said, what are we doing here with these play calls? I.e., the 2-point conversion twice yesterday that did not work for us. And there were several times where I thought Derrick Henry should have been running the ball. There were instances where I said, where's Keaton Mitchell in the run game? And we tried to get a little bit cute with the passing game, and it worked pretty much because, hey, our receivers, Rashad Bateman, shout out to him. He had a really good game. Isaiah Likely also had an amazing game, but it just still wasn't enough. To me, we should have run the ball more often, many more times, especially for Derrick Henry. 16 is just not going to cut it. We didn't see Keaton Mitchell take one snap. Not one. He did not have one snap that resulted in a carry for him last night. That's upsetting. I don't know why we did not use Keaton Mitchell. Not to run Keaton Mitchell up the middle, because we saw, especially in the first half, that offensive, the interior was struggling. Can't we take Keaton Mitchell and run him to the outside? We couldn't do that. And to add insult to injury, our defense really did not come to play lights out as we would have expected. I thought, okay, obviously, defending the middle of the field in terms of our linebackers has been an issue all season pretty much. And I thought it's not going to be any different this upcoming game. But the way to combat that is to have that interior pressure from our D-line and our edge rushers just really get after Josh Allen, get some QB hits, get some pressures, and ultimately get him on the ground. We had a total of 1 sack. One half of a sack was credited to Nnamdi Madubuike, and the other half was credited to Kyle Van Noy. We had 4 QB hits and 3 tackles for loss. Our defense was able to make some crucial stops, and that's important to recognize, but they did not generate any turnovers. That's important too. You can't have that happen in a playoff game. Somebody on that defense really needed to step up and just have a stellar game. Now, I'm not going to say I was hoping it was Odafe Owe, because truth be told, he recorded 1 stat, well, 2 actually. One of them was a tackle. The other one was a penalty. And no, those 2 do not offset each other. I was very frustrated that Odafe Owe could not get after Josh Allen. And I can no longer sit here and just defend Odafe, because really, he's just not living up to it in the postseason. He got double digits in the regular season, and that's great. But here we are in the postseason. Where are you? Last, my takeaways from the game yesterday concern John Harbaugh. I think that John Harbaugh's time is up. I think he has overstayed his welcome. I'm not the one who has been, Harbaugh needs to go, he must go. That's not been kind of my thought process. But to see us repeatedly, year after year, have amazing rosters, year after year, great talent, but get to the playoffs and we just don't get the job done. Certain instances where we look unprepared, undisciplined. We're just not ready. That to me falls on John Harbaugh. Now, yes, of course, everything that I mentioned earlier is a part of execution, and that falls on the individual players. but coaching plays a big part in this as well. So I do think it's time for the Ravens to move on from John Harbaugh and bring in someone younger, or maybe someone who has a fresh perspective, a more aggressive approach to coaching, getting this team ready, getting this team prepared each and every single game. Again, while I appreciate John Harbaugh for the successes that he has led our team to, it's time now, because going into the playoffs or just being relevant enough, just competitive enough, but not being serious about going all the way, having what it takes, making sure our mindsets are correct into each playoff game is what I think is lacking here with our head coach. Because as a fan, I don't want to just be relevant. I don't want to just be competitive. I want to be a winner. And I want us to be able to punch our way into the Super Bowl and win it all. Perhaps my biggest takeaway from last night's game is that the Ravens are the only team that really stand in the Ravens' way of winning a Super Bowl. It comes down to you cannot, in a playoff atmosphere, whether you are home or even more so on the road, come back from 3 turnovers, 5 drops. Shout out to our team, especially Lamar Jackson, for really trying to rally together to overcome a 21-10 deficit. And we did. In that second half, we really put our foot on the gas and we turned it up a notch, but it was just a bit too much for us to overcome, which is sad because I was not ready for our season to be over. But here we are. Well, family, thank you for sticking with me throughout this entire 2024-2025 NFL season. Sad that we are in this position right now to have to make this video, but we are. And I'm going to take a few days. I'm going to need it. And you do the same. Take some time. Do whatever you need to do to protect your mental health, because seeing the narratives, hearing them on social media, it can get to you, but don't let it. Keep your head up, and I will see you very soon. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and head over and watch one of my last videos.